Chris from Comrex, are you with us?
I am indeed. I'm just working on sharing my screen. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I figured what better way for a kid that grew up in Detroit and lives in Atlanta to pander to his audience than grab a Green Bay Packers cup and drink coffee out of it.
Awesome.
I'm not a Packers fan. I'm not a Packers fan. I love the Packers about as much as I love the New Orleans Saints, which is not. But there's coffee in it, so it's good. The reason I actually have this cup, I'm actually in a 44-foot motorhome in a parking lot in Charlotte, North Carolina. Me and a bunch of fellow vendors have gotten together, and we're actually traveling around the country showing products to broadcasters from city to city. So this week we started out in, where did we start out? I don't even know at this point, but we've been up the West Coast and across the northern tier. We spent some time in Wisconsin and Appleton, Milwaukee, and Thiensville, which was lovely. But now we're doing the Atlantic seaboard and be headed down to Florida in a couple weeks. So that'll be nice.
Wow. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Well, it's great to be here. And one of the things that, we've been dealing with in this very, very strange new way of doing things is helping people broadcast from home safely, because you certainly don't want to have people in your facilities. And by the way, our event is set up in tents outside. We're all masked. We're all socially distant. So we're being very, very careful and responsible socially, and that's important. So it's been a very busy and unusual year for us. And to be honest, March started out just like any other month, except there was this constant drumbeat about the virus outbreak from China. And it was in the news cycle on a regular basis. By about Thursday, March 5th, radio stations around the globe were in emergency planning mode, and all of the programming and engineering teams were trying to figure out how to plan for all of the big what ifs. I had been over in London, where there was a lot of talk about the virus, but there hadn't been a shutdown yet. I was headed to Los Angeles for a bunch of meetings when the news that the NBA had a player that tested positive, and they had canceled that night's game. And the next day they canceled the whole season. And then the NCAA canceled their entire season. And I was on the way back to New York, where apparently I had to take a train through ground zero for COVID, which was upstate, just north of New York, and New Rochelle, I think. And I was headed up to Stamford, Connecticut. When I got back down to New York for some meetings down there, I heard that the NBC or the CBS broadcast center had closed down because 2 of their people had tested positive for coronavirus. And as you can imagine, if I can get my thing to work here. Okay, what's going on? There we go. Manhattan was a ghost town. It was eerie to be in Manhattan, and there were no people on the streets at all. Instead of tens of thousands of people, we were dealing with tens of people, and it was really kind of uncanny. So at that point, we pretty much figured out that suddenly every broadcaster on the planet needed to figure out how to broadcast from home. And I would assume that any of the, and we'll have people walking in and out, so please never mind all of the noises. Every broadcaster on the planet and probably every PEG station on the planet needed to figure out how they're going to get their volunteers or their program contributors to work from home. And luckily, that's what we specialize in. And our March was probably the best quarter in our company's history because we sold a lot of gear to be able to get people to broadcast from home. Well, here we are several months later. We're still trying to figure all this stuff out. Everybody is doing Google meetings and Zoom meetings like we are in our pajamas, and apparently that's how we all work. And I am wearing full street clothes, by the way. And so there are some technical challenges for PEG stations and commercial broadcasters beyond just getting the internal microphone on the computer to work. And to be fair, We all work with volunteers, and a lot of them aren't the most technical people. They are Luddites and sometimes technophobes. And that's why engineers and guys like me exist, to be able to help people figure out the technical side of broadcasting so that personalities and volunteers can concentrate on creating great program content. As you can imagine, we've been taking a lot of calls from a lot of different levels of technical skill recently, as people are trying to figure out how to broadcast from home. Just about every broadcaster in the world has been given either some gear to take home to set up in their home studio, or some engineer has showed up to their home in a hazmat suit to set up everything, or as has been the case, many people are just left to figure it out on their own. So what I'm hoping to do is give you some things that you can take back to your volunteers to help them have a better idea of what they need to do to set up their home studio for either creating content, doing real-time back and forth, realizing that a lot of the content that you folks are producing is like we were just talking about in the last session, town hall meetings and so forth, but there are some live programs you might need to get on the air where you're actually interacting with guests and folks back in their homes. So there's no shortage of way to connect from a remote location back to the studio where things are produced. There are software, there are smartphones, there are web-based solutions. There are expensive IP audio and video codecs that companies like mine make. But regardless of what you're working with or what your talent or your volunteers are working with, the first thing that they need to do is work on getting organized as quickly as possible. I just pulled this up just to show you what my schedule looked like in the month of February. All those green things are events and places I needed to be, and over to the right, the only thing after the second week of March was my birthday, and everything else was canceled for the rest of the year. That's one of the reasons we're out on the road, because everything's been canceled. So getting organized is important, and I'd like to give you a few tips on things you can do to get organized. You'll notice that a lot of our customers have sent us these pictures, and you might have a lovely seaside view like the folks in the top there with an IP audio codec, webcam, and set up to do everything there. In the kitchen, maybe not so ideal, but certainly a lot of distractions in a kitchen. Certainly a lot of sounds could be emanating from that kitchen as well, and screaming kids and whatnot. But probably more so than picking the perfect spot, I mean, that is important. You should take some time and get organized with, first of all, a document that has all of your key technical details. Encourage your staff, your volunteers, and even your professional staff to have everything that they need related to their IP network at home, so that if somebody needs to call technical support or rely on your technical team to get set up, that they have it all on one sheet. So first of all, your IP address. There are a couple of there's a public IP address that you have. There's also a local IP address. They need to have those details on a sheet that is easy to find. If you want to know what your public IP address is, they can just type in whatismyip.com and it'll magically pop up on an internet-enabled web browser. And also network router details. When we have people calling us for technical support, we spend a lot of time having them search for the user name and password for their router, the make and model and brand of their router, and other things that are really useful for an IT professional to know. So this is something else that's important to have on that document. Routers can be a lot of different things. It could be a separate router and then a modem. There are some companies that combine them into one device, but knowing what that is and how to get into it so you can assist your IT professionals is really important, and having that in the document is really important as well. Also having the ISP, the Internet Service Provider, contact information on there, a tech support number, your account number, those things are really important for making sure that you can get yourself set up at home in your studio. So number two, if you are lucky enough to have an IP audio codec or an IP video codec, just sending it home with a volunteer is maybe not ideal. Helping them understand the ins and outs of it, giving them a little bit of saddle time or kind of a refresher on how it works is really important. Especially if you have a radio station and you have people that are doing their shows from home, knowing where the mic input is, where the gain knob is, the headphone adjustments are really important. Also, some of the screens that are on the device, so they know how to navigate that really basically. It seems like common sense, but you'd be amazed how many people call us and say, I'm having an issue with my Comrex. Well, we make about 30 or 40 different products, and it's difficult to troubleshoot it if we don't know which one it is. So if they know that it's a Comrex Access or a Comrex Live Shot, we're going to be able to help them much easier than if we have to kind of guess as to what product they're trying to use. So knowing the model number is going to be very helpful as well. And as I mentioned, getting to know the various screens. And it's a really big ask, but if your volunteers or your folks that are creating content can crack open the manual and study that a little bit, that can be helpful as well. Another thing that is really useful for your staffs that are working from home is for them to install TeamViewer or VNC Connect Server. It's a free program that they can put on their computer that will allow you or your technical staff to log in to help them solve some issues that they might be having with editing software, or maybe they're using Premiere Pro at home, or they're using some kind of software codec to connect to you. Being able to get into their computer and muck around in there and get things correctly configured, these are really nice applications for that. So TeamViewer or VNC Connect Server are very handy things. Making a list of all of your gear, the makes and models of the devices is really important. I've had people call me up and they'll say, I'm having a problem with my Mix Minus, and I think there's this box that's connected, and I'm not sure if that's the problem or not. And it's like, well, what is the box? Well, I don't know. It's just, it's on a cord connected to my computer. If you can tell us that it's a Focusrite USB audio interface, even better, because that can allow us to find that, figure out what it is, and help them get the problem solved a lot quicker. So making a list of all the gear in your studio so we can kind of go through that list and help is really important. Now, this is not so important. The next thing on there, number 5, understanding Mix Minus. It's really important for live audio back and forth. Fortunately, with Zoom and Google Meeting, that's kind of done for you automatically. But if you're interfacing a professional audio product back in the studio, Mix Minus is really critical. It's a mind-boggling concept for most people, but creating one from a home studio, if you have a small Mackie mixer or something, is something that's going to save your interview or your on-air session from turning into a disaster. Because if you don't have a Mix Minus, you're going to hear yourself back in your headphones and you're not going to be able to talk, and it's going to drive you nuts. I'll be doing a tech talk video on Mix Minus. It's critical for radio and television, and that'll be available on our website, I think, in about 2 weeks. So something to look back for. This is a really important thing to keep in mind. If you are broadcasting from home, or if you're creating content from home and something isn't working and you have to do a live session, or you have to do your show and something isn't working, if you call tech support, you need to be calm, first of all. Having that list of technical documents that you've created already is going to be a big, big help. But yelling at the tech support person that you're off the air and using harsh expletives isn't going to get you on the air any faster. But being prepared and having all the details necessary is probably the best thing you can do to make sure that your problem is going to be solved quickly. And since you have all those technical documents at your disposal, you can just calmly read them to the tech support person. They'll be able to help you troubleshoot the issue and get everything solved. Last thing that is really important is to thank the technical support person that you're dealing with. It's not because you're necessarily hurting their feelings, but the next time you call for tech support, they're probably gonna be a lot more willing to help you if you've been nice to them. It's just common courtesy, and it goes a long, long way in the future. So hopefully you can take these suggestions to heart, apply them for your volunteers that are working remotely, and help them getting organized is going to basically help deal with the inevitable hiccups that will occur during this extended time away from the broadcast facility or your PEG center. And hopefully these little items can help them. So let's talk a little bit about setting yourself up with some gear in this time of crisis. Having a good engineer is really a key thing. These two guys, Jason Ornelas and Joe Foft from Bonneville Broadcasting in San Francisco, early on bought a bunch of Comrex gear and a little device that I'll show you here in a second called the Rode Podcaster Pro, and put together little packages for their air personalities and sent them home. So all they had to do is fire it up, plug in the microphone, put on the headphones, and they were good to go. And those that needed to use webcams got those set up. But these guys were really invaluable for their staffs and getting, I think they had 21 people they had to set up remotely for their one facility in Sacramento. And this has been happening all over the world. So engineers are gold in a time of crisis, and I can't really emphasize that enough. So especially for audio and video, and I don't have enough time to talk about all the solutions that are available, but we'll just go over some real basic ones. But you can invest in a professional IP codec for audio or video that range anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 for the audio stuff, up to $9,000 or $10,000 for the video stuff. The great thing about those is that they come with basically reliability built into them. It's a much more reliable solution. It's basically got everything you need all in one package. It has, I guess, a dedicated computer processor. If you think about pro-grade audio or video equipment, what you're paying for is that reliability, low latency, superior audio quality, superior video quality, and most importantly, that customer support that I was talking about. A lot of the lower cost things, you don't get support unless it's by email, and that certainly doesn't help you get your content on the air. So one thing to keep in mind is that computers are powering everything these days, from smart filters that you use to on your home HVAC to SpaceX launch systems, and an IP audio or video codec is no different. It's a very sophisticated computer, and it's a dedicated hardware that is purpose-built to give you pristine delivery and reliability of your content. And you don't have to worry about complicated setups with some of the other solutions that we'll talk about. And that's really one of the reasons why you spend the big bucks for something like that. And in some cases, some of this hardware can be configured so that you just power it up and it'll automatically connect back to your broadcast facility for content. All the others require a lot of setup and configuration. And there's certainly a lot of solutions that are out there that are either low cost or free. But a nice hybrid solution, the one that Jason and Joe had set out for their staff, was a Comrex Bricklink for audio, and that little Rode Podcaster Pro with a little mixer. It's got a little built-in mix-minus bus. And especially if you're doing podcasts, something like that is really great. It's about $500 or $600 and a nice little compact package that somebody could set up for their home studio. It's not going to give you a lot of mix-minus options. It has one mix-minus bus, and you have to know how to set it up. But it's a really nice solution for getting your volunteers or content creators to get stuff into the studio. And of course, there are a ton of free PC-based things like Skype and FaceTime and Google Hangouts and Zoom. They're free, but they do require an external computer and some interfacing to get that audio and video back into a professional distribution, production, or on-air system. In terms of audio, there are lots of free VoIP apps like LinPhone, Zoiper, Lucy Live Lite, OnSIP, IPDTL, Source Connect, QGO Live, and they all support broadcast quality algorithms, and a lot of pro-grade solutions are actually compatible with these, but you just don't have that live support from a real human being, or the reliability that you have in the other solutions. But whatever the circumstances, the folks at Comrex are happy to discuss options with you and your team, how we can help you get set up to set up a remote broadcast studio, and we're happy to do that. So one thing that you can consider is, especially if you're doing Zoom meetings, is improving the quality of the audio. And there's some real simple things you can do for that. Investing in a simple microphone that might cost $150 to $200 can really make a difference. While I'm using these earbuds, it's not my preference because the audio is a little tinny. I was listening to a nationally syndicated program the other day, and it sounded like one of the content contributors was sitting in the back of a bathroom and talking across the room to a microphone that might have been in the kitchen. It was not really good. My preference would be to use this headset and this really cool USB interface, but I stupidly, because I'm on the road, left one of my adapters at home, so I can't do it. So darn it. But I usually tell people that in order to make the best content, get the best mic or the best camera that you can afford, avoid using earbuds, avoid using the microphone on the computer. That's probably the worst. It's kind of like having somebody use speakerphone to talk to you about a really important business detail. And I would also recommend using good mic technique. And I say this in all seriousness. Using technique is really important, because if you get a decent microphone, take some time to learn about it. Lady Gaga recently did this event called Home Together, and she took copious amounts of grief in the Twitterverse because she was showing off this beautiful vintage $20,000 Neumann Telefunken U47 microphone, which was probably the same one that Frank Sinatra used at Capitol Records, because she probably would have gone out and bought that. And she proceeded to sing into the back of it. And you can even see the cardioid pattern on the front. And the way that this microphone is designed is to sing into the logo. And you'll also know she's got it set up next to a brick wall in a hallway. And that was a lot of reflective surfaces, and it's probably why it sounded like she was singing and talking from the mouth of a cave during the concert. And I think it was great that she was doing it, but it was really annoying for those of us who appreciate the beauty of a microphone like that. So one of our comments that we usually get from tech support is, I've had to convince people that they need to get out of the kitchen. They need to put the microphone in their closet. National Public Radio had hosts that were actually in the closet. Well, they were doing their shows in the closet, mainly because all those clothes provide some really good noise dampening and really good acoustics. So you can see a microphone set up in a closet, a blanket around a couple of chairs. Things like that can really improve the audio quality of your broadcast. And of course, we could talk about all the things you can do with video, but I'm not prepared to do that at this point. But for audio, you can even get a simple mic preamp that's just a few $100s that will provide compression, gating, limiting, dealing with room noise, and some that can actually get rid of street noise and screaming children, depending on the settings. PreSonus, Focusrite, DBX, Behringer, they all make really nice, inexpensive gear that can help. And as I always tell people, read reviews, talk to audio or video nerds that can help you pick the right gear. And I can also say, in all seriousness, that nothing beats good mic technique. One thing, and we'll talk, I'll show you something that kind of demonstrates that fact in just a second. 5 minutes? Okay, almost done. So if I can do this, this is a nice little piece of contribution kit. A lot of people are using this for getting hosts remotely into the studio, audio-wise. And I'm gonna just play a little video about it if this works. Or maybe it won't. Oh. I guess I'm not able to play videos on this platform. It does not appear to be the case. Let me go back to screen sharing and see if it'll let me.
It should let you. It looked like it had a link.
Hmm. Yeah, for some reason. Okay. I guess I'll just have to describe this. So sorry, I only have 5 minutes anyway. But we have a nice product called Opal, which will allow you to send a link, a web link. It's a web browser URL. You can send it to them. They can click on it. And as long as they have a good microphone or even earbuds on their laptop, it will sound like they're sitting in the studio next to you. And you can have two people on there at the same time. And it's great for podcasts. It's great for live on-air interviews where you don't necessarily have a camera set up. But if you can send them a link, if they have a smartphone or a PC, they can at least do high quality audio and contribute to your program. And finally, I was going to say, don't be this person. There's this funny video that I was going to show you of this girl who was in a studio to sing for the first time, and she proceeded to sing into the ballast on the microphone stand and not the microphone that was on the other end. It's actually kind of funny. My description is horrible. I'm so sorry. It was funny. Okay. So if you have any questions, if we can help in any way, getting your volunteers, your production staff set up at home, we're happy to help in any way we can. It is a unusual time, and we're all adapting, just like I am out here on the road in Charlotte, and we're happy to help you adapt.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. We appreciate you being here. And
Go
are there
Pack,
any
go.
questions? Yeah, I can't believe you're drinking out of that mug since you said you're not a Packer fan.
Well, it's kind of hard to be a Detroit Lions fan, and it's even harder to be a Falcons fan this year. So I guess I can't get much worse. It's tough
Okay.
though.
Yeah, thanks so much again.